Dun, 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 dun. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our weekly review of Loki. Joining me this week, we have, of course, the wonderful and beautiful Miss Alyssa Jean.
Hi Darren. Hello, everyone. So good to be here. Well, this week I'm Miss Minutes. I am that Southern cartoon clock from the 1970s who probably haunt your dreams. But you can call me Alyssa. That's totally fine.
Perfect. So, jumping into things all here real quick. Normally this week, Terry Huddleston was scheduled to join us, but some things had come up, so he had to unfortunately back out. But we may be getting joined by a third surprise guest, so we'll see what we can sort of whip up here in our own little TVA time stream. But I want to be sure to thank Allison joining us live right here in the chat and let you guys know that next week, Don Willie will be joining us, as well as Mark from Enchantment of Eternity. So really got a wonderful stream of guests that are coming up. But let's jump right into things this week. It's, of course, episode 2, The Variant. And I don't know, we kind of jump right into things, which I'm really excited about. But Alyssa, since this is kind of your first time coming in with us, or sorry, Miss Minutes, joining us in with the show, why don't you give us a catch up? What have you been feeling about the show so far? And then go right into this specific episode.
Alyssa is fine, but I love this show. And I was expecting to love it. It is right up my alley. The time travel and the time variance and the time stream and all those different things. It's right. It's just right in my wheelhouse. However, of the first 2 episodes, I'm of two minds. I really enjoy it, but I also feel like the best is still to come. And maybe I'm setting myself up for too much expectation for that. As much as I have enjoyed it so far, I feel like this really been the first 2 episodes have been a lot of table setting. Mm-hmm. And I think even more so than we might realize. Like, I think that the big event at the end is not even like the big event of the show. That it only happened in the 2nd episode. I think we're setting up for something even bigger than that.
Sure.
As much as I have really thoroughly enjoyed it, I do feel like there was a lot of table setting, and we're really going to get into good stuff by the end of the 6 episode run. And I have to point out how much I really love Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson together. Loki went in that little portal chasing after Lady Loki, but I am sure that he and Owen Wilson Mobius will be back together again, because you can't keep those 2 characters apart. They have such great chemistry. I love the scenes with the 2 of them. Even though through the first 2 episodes, about 80% of their scenes together, I probably saw in the trailer 100 times, which is unfortunate that I watched the trailer that many times, because they have a lot of the really good scenes between the 2 of them were in the trailer. So I guess that's why I'm also looking forward to maybe moving a little bit out of the trailer a little bit and getting into great scenes between those 2 characters I haven't seen 100 times already, but I do love the chemistry between these 2 actors and these 2 characters. And in the past, my brother would know this, Mark would know this, I used to not really be a huge Owen Wilson fan, like just not him and Ben Stiller, and that just style of humor was just never really my thing. So, but in certain projects that he's been in, that I can really appreciate him, and this is my favorite thing that I've ever seen him in, because him with Tom Hiddleston is just so good, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I completely buy it. It is the chemistry between these 2 that they kind of make up. I mean, one, they make up a lot of the actual physical scenes, but I think it gives so much of the energy and interesting character work. We had the sort of, psychological breakdown last week, and this week now is more kind of co-workers, the back and forth shifts, but I still find it to be most illuminating character-wise and information-wise. So, I mean, I see what you're saying with a lot of table setting, and that's certainly true. But I think, like you said, it's not just telling us what we need to know for these particular episodes. I think it's setting up a lot of stuff going forward. And I think that's one of the brilliance of the way that I saw the episode written is within all this dialogue, they're giving us character information, they're giving us backstory, they're giving us exposition, but they're doing it as a natural conversation as opposed to, now let's take a break and let me tell you for 10 minutes about this thing that happened when I was 18 and it totally shaped my entire viewpoint of this moment, which I always find just really painful.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to imply by saying the table setting that this is a bad thing. The table setting is absolutely necessary, and it is probably some of the best table setting I've ever seen. Because, as you said, the way that they are able to weave in exposition and character building is perfect. Like that's. Mm-hmm. I tried watching this movie recently that I hadn't seen before. This movie Tenet, and I turned it off because it was just like one exposition scene after the other, and I was like, and it wasn't interesting. Like they just weren't. It wasn't interesting dialogue. If you're going to have a film or a show that relies on a lot of dialogue, and that's how you're relaying exposition, then it needs to be interesting, it needs to be witty, it needs to be well acted, not just two people sitting and talking at each other going bah, 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 bah. So, right. So this is a great example of how to do it properly, and it's not like it's all exposition and sitting around. There's also some very key action scenes as well, or not action like things blowing up, but you know what I mean, like things happening, things moving forward.
There is a lot of movement, and we've talked about, by the way, want to say hi to Rob from Smirking Gun Reviews, also joining us in live. What's going on, Rob? But we were actually discussing this kind of last week with the way they do their setups and all of that. Well, actually, I want to kind of just, before we get too much into those weeds, I want to kind of go into kind of an example of what we're talking about here, because they set it up, I think, really easily from the get-go. We have the cute interview or kind of quiz moment with Miss Minutes kicking things off, which gives us some information about red lines, why they're bad, what they're for, played within just a fun character scene of here's Loki now, in the job as with the TVA doing his regular everyday things. Then we get the mission going. And as for mission setups, those are always great times to give us things. There's back and forth that tells us about Nexus events, why you can't go back in time to stop them before they start, which I think was a great little quick explanation of why you can't just fix it before they do their thing, which we always talk about in time travel stuff, what the bombs are for, what the reset charges do. And I think all that information was given in that natural kind of, we're quizzing you, we're teasing you, we're seeing what you know. It makes sense in those moments. But what we get before that, I think, clues us into a bigger question of what people ask for like Endgame and the rest of the time travel ideas is our multiple Loki variants. That is the most common prune that they have to do. That's the most common variant that gets out, and there's all sorts of different kinds of Loki variants, different costumes, different sizes, different voices, which unto itself, while it's kind of a fun educational bit, it tells us that the sacred timeline is actually multiple timelines. The sacred timeline consists of multiple parallel universes, because that's the only way you can have those type of variations, and would explain why you can go back in Endgame to time and then bring Thanos back years before, kill him so that timeline would have no blip and not have the TVA come in and sort of mess things up. It allows all of these different variations, but maybe it's just these are all close together in actions. They all have the same type of things happening. So maybe that allows it, but it's the only way you can have those type of variants.
Yeah, unless they're all just like variants, like our Loki, who screw up and then they have to fix the timeline, reset the timeline, and bring them in. But actually, that can't be the case because we do have Lady Loki running around. So there needs to be other timelines running around. I'm a little unclear on that actually, like how they're resetting certain timelines, but other ones are allowed to continue. Is it only if there's an Infinity Stone involved? Is that what that's why there's a drawer full of Infinity Stones? Because anytime, like he had the Tesseract, so we got to do something about this one because there's an Infinity Stone involved, but the other ones we'll just let them go. Like I don't really quite grasp what's going on with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're keeping those intentionally a little bit vague. They're just giving us little hints, because while the idea of a variant Loki, you could think of, oh, well, he's doing an experiment and here's a Loki that took the super strength serum, the super soldier serum, at one point, or here's a Loki that did this. But you're right, there's a female Loki. They say that it's not like they're one type of Loki that sometimes has variants. He's talked specifically, they all come in all different shapes and sizes, and variation. So it just, by doing these small little things, I think they're allowing the setup a way they can clearly explain all of these other big questions and changes. All they have to do is say, I mean, really, if Thanos gets moved forward and there's no snap in a universe, well, that really only changes 5 years, right? I mean, really, or maybe something else happens and that universe gets destroyed. It allows you to do all these different movements and changes and variations without necessarily violating the rules of your universe. So anyway, it's just one of those interesting, I think, little setup things that they're giving us beforehand. And I think these are the things that later on down the road are going to prove to be a lot more important. This is why this will make sense. Yeah.
And they've been doing, as you've said, a really good job of giving this information in a way that keeps your attention. It's a lot of times it's funny. It's like the Miss Minute scene that you mentioned, and Loki. Like I didn't get how, like, why is Miss Minute's afraid of Loki hitting her? Is he like, could he like do damage to her? And she like jumps in the computer and like, hey asshole, stop chasing me. And Miss Minute seems to be sentient. I don't know. Miss Minute creeps me out a little bit. I think she's going to be a sentient AI who's going to take over the universe. But Miss Minute is the true villain. She's going to take over the world.
You can never trust anything that's unsure of its own existence. I'm a recording and alive at the same time. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, but that gave us a whole lot of information, as you said, and it was a very fun scene to watch. So the show has really done a good job at that, because there is a lot of exposition that we need to get, not just for this show, but they are really starting to get into how does time travel work in the MCU, because we did get that, somewhat at Endgame, but I don't even think like the Avengers, I don't think they even really knew. These are from like this is the Time Variance Authority. Like they know. Or do they? I will talk about that later. And I'm not sure if everything that they think they know is actually true. But from their standpoint, they know more about how timelines work than the Avengers did. We did get a little bit of that in Avengers Endgame, but I think this is delving a lot more into this is how time travel works in the MCU. And I think by the end of the show, we might be setting up for something completely different. We might be not as directly as WandaVision was, but I think we may be indirectly setting up for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and possibly a little bit of Spider-Man with the No Way Home with the rumored, almost really pretty much confirmed multiverse shenanigans going on in
Right.
that film as well. So I think this may prove to be a very important series for the MCU, as it's really going to set up for how time travel and timeline splitting off and alternate universes and all of those things are really going to work in the MCU. And the way that they have disseminated that information so far has been really good.
Yes, for sure. Do want to jump in real quick as we get into our multiverse discussion to bring in another multiverse guest ourselves, joining us at the last minute to fill in for Mr. Huddleston. It is Mr. Don Willie of Midgard.
Hey.
Yes. Greetings, everyone. I am Willie of Midgard, and I have been burdened with glorious purpose.
Well, thank you so much, Don, for jumping on with us as we're actually in the middle of our multiverse discussions. This sort of is a perfect bit of timing for you. What I wanted to kind of get into is I think that's what I was talking about when we see our little variants, is that's where we have a multiverse of timelines that allow you to have these variants and these different things. And we'll explain, and I think you're right, Alyssa, how they're going to explain how time travel works, or that there may be multiple ways of time traveling. Some may go through a specific timeline. Some may go to an alternate timeline and then bring you back to the original. Some, like from the TVA, allows you to jump at any point on any of the multiverse timelines, potentially. So yeah, I think we're completely going to be seeing more of this. And I think we're definitely going to be getting more hints of what our bigger bad is. But Don, why don't you let us know what you've been thinking about of our Loki show so far?
So apparently, this cap is now worthless. Paperweight. Since they can just be thrown in someone's desk at any point in time. So I will don something more appropriate. There you go. Since he happens to be the only person missing from this so far.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I don't get that. You got to explain that one to me, though. I can't.
Oh, come on. You don't recognize this?
Well, it's Thor. It looks like Thor's vest, but I just wanted to be sure.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. I'd love to see. Anyone would love to see Chris Hemsworth sort of jump in, I'm sure.
Technically, he's been in it from when they re-showed scenes from Endgame, but
that's true.
Not
true.
New footage of Thor.
Yeah. So far, I like this one. Probably the best out of the Marvel Disney Plus shows so far. Yeah, it's one of those things where they definitely have constructed this this story to kind of not only tug at your heartstrings for Loki and the things that he has been going through, but also to expand your mind as to how the time travel thing works, and then also how they're going to tie this into future events, past events, and now with these variations, it's like, okay, well, if there is the sacred timeline, the one sacred timeline, then it has to be asked, where did these variants come from? How, like if there's only currently one timeline, and every time they, every time that there's a branch, they basically reset that timeline and get rid of that Loki. Now we have two variants One of them, a lot of people have been speculating online is not Loki at all.
Right.
Which I'm like, because even if Loki happened to be a woman, why would he all of a sudden, or she all of a sudden now have blonde hair? Looks like a totally different character to me. But yeah, it's one of those things where, obviously Lucy's got some explaining to do with when it comes to all of this. And I do think we're going to get something interesting. And I think we're going to find out that, um, the bad guys that we have been chasing, is the wrong bad guy. I think that
Misdirection in a Loki show?
yeah,
No.
I totally agree, and I was planning to talk about that a little later too when we get into it. But yeah, I absolutely agree that I don't think Lady Loki is the true villain here, or whatever you want to call her, whatever her name is. But I don't think she's the true villain here.
Yeah, I think the true villains. I think the true villains have been here all along thus far, and it's only going to be fully revealed, probably episode 5. What the big thing is that, it's like, wait, you mean all this time that we've been chasing after Lady Loki and variant Loki? It's really been, and I won't say it right now.
Oh, you know who it is?
Well, I think I know who it is, but
it's Mephisto.
No. It's not Mephisto. I'll keep telling you, it's not Mephisto. No, I'm sorry. It could be. There's a lot of different things, and I'd love to, in a little bit, get into a lot of the speculation stuff, because I think they do lay a lot of the groundwork in a lot of these little discussions, and like I was discussing before, I can't say enough how much I've really enjoyed the writing in this. The scene that we have with God, I didn't bring on my glasses. Who's Ravonna and Mobius's boss, and him. The little bits of character bit we get into Mobius, how he's got a soft spot for broken things and stuff like that. That I think is great little bits to give us further character bit. We get to see the interaction, like you mentioned, Alyssa, the beautiful stuff between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, which is like the next generation of 48 Hours. You can see in Mobius, it's like, God, I see such potential in you, but you're so annoying to even be around. You're aggravating to be with, but there is a goodness there. I think he sees that, but there's a frustration level. To the small bits of character that we get when we're talking jet skis, as many people in the chat keep bringing up, that we have to at some point see Mobius on a jet ski before the series is over, and I agree. But even all those little minutes give us insight into the world and into the characters, but feel like natural conversations. It feels like we're getting good little bits and insights in here. And I just love how they've crafted a lot of these little moments to kind of maximize information without, again, making that, now let's stop while I talk about my dog that I lost when I was 18 and how much it hurt me. Which, as I've mentioned before, annoys the crap out of me. It's hard because I want to get into a lot of the stuff that you guys are talking about in regards to theory. And I mean, I don't know, maybe we should just kind of go in. Well, let me throw out, are there any other big moments in the show that stand out, bits that you want to be sure to sort of touch on before we go on? Because I kind of feel like everything's going to end up being intertwined, and we're going to be holding off to say anything because we don't want to mention something else yet.
Well, I would like to mention, it was interesting that they said that each variant kind of has different powers, right? And so the question remains, again, if this is all branches of one timeline, how did each Loki get the different powers? Because I'm still just a tad bit confused as to if there isn't currently a multiverse as the way that it's been explained. That there's only supposedly one timeline, and somehow Lokis keep on branching off and making their own timelines, and they have to keep on chasing them down. And obviously there are other people as well, like we saw, possibly Sharon Carter in episode 1. There was the guy who was like the banker's son, I think they said he was supposed to be, or whatever. Yeah, so obviously there are other people that are able to branch off of the timeline and become variants. The question is how, right?
Well, I think the answer to that is there is a multiverse of parallel universes that follow a singular timeline. They're all, while you might have an infinite level of parallel universes, that was the war, and the only things that remained or were chosen by the timekeepers or whatever that is a grouping of parallel universes that all are relatively the same, except for minor variations. If a Loki's big or small, if they're tall or short, if they're male or female, or whichever. But the general actions of those timelines are the same.
If there's already... Go ahead.
I mean, again, I'm just theorizing where they're going with it.
But if there's already multiple timelines, then why is what Lady Loki does at the end of the episode a big deal? Because it seems like she has created all of these branches and the TVA is going nuts. And it's like she's messed everything up. But if that already exists, why is that a big deal? I'm just confused by that.
It's multiple universes along a single timeline. Timeline is the way of actions are all going forward. The universes are all very similar. There may be 2 or 3 that are exactly the same, and everyone does exactly the same. So if you want to time travel, you may not go, if you go through the quantum realm, you don't go to your own past, you go to the past of that parallel universe, steal their Infinity Stone, and then come back. But all those actions are exactly the same because those universes are almost exactly identical. And you'll have a grouping of them that are all relatively identical, but all of the actions and events are all similar in each of them, despite whether I'm blonde or a girl or a weightlifter. Most of the important acts of that time could be all exactly the same. Again, theoretical, but I think that's where they're going to try and go and play with. And that way, if you change one thing drastically, then you make a big timeline shift. Then something huge can go wrong and different.
Right. I mean, well, from what I remember, because the whole thing with the reset charges is, oh my god! I wish they would stop doing that. Stop texting me, people. All right, I'm busy. Busy not talking to you. Busy talking to people on the internet who matter. Anyway, all right. So, from what I gathered, with the whole thing is the reset charges basically wipe out events in history. So when Lady Loki or whatever she's supposed to be called, I guess we'll find out later, because she, remember when Loki confronted her when she was in Randy's body, he was like, no, don't call me that. And he was like, call me Randy. And it was like, okay, so obviously she's not a fan of the name Loki, maybe because she's possibly not Loki. But the thing about it is, when she set off all those charges, it went to different points on the timeline. And basically what happened from what I could see, was she erased certain major events, or maybe even minor events, that now, because these events never happened, they caused a ton of variations. So
Okay.
now, because this now, it totally throws a timeline into chaos, because, what if Tony Stark never became Iron Man? What if Captain America? What if Steve Rogers never became Captain America? What if Thor never became worthy again?
And maybe
what
this
if?
is setting up for What If, the show. Maybe that's where What If comes from, is from this scene. We're going to get all the what ifs. But go on.
I love that. That's a nice little way to sort of just insert that into their show, and that's kind of perfect. Nice. I think that's entirely possible. I think that's a great thing. Is we'll obviously see what the effects of those are end up going to be. But yeah, exactly. You alter one or two of these events, then you start that spread out. There's too many points for the timekeepers to go and catch them before it hits red line, and you get to spiral things out. And if you are, I don't know, a god-ish type character based on a God of Mischief who is interested more in chaos than order, as we had that nice little discussion between Mobius and Loki there, that would certainly introduce chaos into the multiverse. And is it her plan, or is she working for someone else, or unknowingly working at the behest of someone else? You're right.
One might even say it's introducing madness into the multiverse.
It is indeed. It is indeed introducing madness. Oh my God, we've lost Doug! That's all right. We'll jump back in, folks, in a minute. We can't control the internet. They keep trying to stop us every week. Anyway, was there any moments from you, Alyssa, that you wanted to be sure we sort of touched on before we started getting into the weeds of speculation?
Yeah, I actually did kind of want to talk about how I really thought it was clever the way that Lady Loki was hiding in an apocalypse, and the way that our Loki figures that out. I thought that was really cool. I think that's a really clever idea. It's not something that I necessarily, ever would have thought of, but it actually makes a ton of sense.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's really. I think it's really creative by the writers, honestly, and such a great scene. And this was actually one I didn't see in the trailer 100 times, but a great scene between the two characters where Loki is just screwing up Mobius's salad.
Yeah.
This is Asgard. No, that's not Asgard. Don't give me back my salad.
And of course, it's Casey behind him that he's got to go and grab the drink from, which I love.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, it's you."
And the fact that it went back to Pompeii was awesome. The history of Pompeii is kind of dear to my wife's, more Herculaneum than Pompeii. So that's always a tragedy I appreciate. Can I say that? Does that sound right? An apocalypse I appreciate.
You can appreciate it.
Yeah.
People would be long dead anyway, so go ahead and appreciate it.
Yeah, and he's exactly the point, Mobius is like, okay, make a bird sound, a small thing. It's like, this whole place is about to be wiped out. You can literally tell them you're from the future and that they're all about to die, and it will make absolutely no difference.
Yeah.
You're right. It's just, I never would have thought of it either, but it's totally brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, I want to point out Allison in the chat saying, "Be free, my horn friends," which I also thought was funny because of Loki and his horns that he wears. So,
indeed,
maybe he felt a little, camaraderie with those goats, his horned friends.
Sure. And if they got away, that probably wouldn't make that big of a difference.
But then where are they going to get away to? The volcano is about to wipe them all out. So
there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I do have one question though. Okay, so all right, so you hide out in the middle of an apocalypse. How do you not die?
Well, you leave before it happens.
Yeah, and then you go back. I think at one point they mentioned that she could just be going there over and over and over again.
Yes.
So you leave before it happens and you go back again.
Yeah,
or you
now
go,
that
to,
may
a,
go
or you go to a
into
different one.
the
Yeah.
resetting of timelines, or this might play into, well, there's 1,000 different parallel universes that all have these events, so that any one of those they could be jumping back and forth. I mean, yes, which would keep them from overstepping their own tracks.
Yeah.
Theoretically, so. But yeah, I love that whole hunt down. And look, there are tiny moments that you could really appreciate when when Loki is looking over the file on Asgard. There is just that little moment, yes, Don, where he's looking and you just see it's not even a tear, it's the barest formation of a tear, which you could just catch as a light twitch. But it was all you needed to see that Loki, with the tough exterior, is still personally affected by Asgard. Now, he does appreciate being right, which is when, of course, he talks to Mobius. He's able to sort of push it off and be like, yes, it's sad they're gone, but look what I figured out. Haha, I'm smart. But I just love that little moment. Like, just, again, not even a tear, just the beginnings of a formation of a tear. Was just such a huge emotional moment with the tiniest little change. Right. Okay. So, all right. So we have that. We get there. We get to our big multi. What does I think it is? I read it was like 2 hurricanes colliding at the same time as what caused this massive apocalyptic event. And it was a mall. The company mall, is that what it was, if I remember correctly?
I think it was more like a big superstore.
Okay.
And they said it was like, these types of stores were common in the era, which is like 2050. So supposedly we don't have superstores quite like that now.
Well, no. I think what they were saying, because it wasn't Walmart, it was Rocksmart. So
Rocksmart, yeah.
So it was supposed to be, I guess Roxxon at the time had diversified into doing Walmart, kind of superstore things. So I think that's, more so what they might have been referring to, because maybe this is even bigger than a Walmart superstore. Like, like we've seen how big a Walmart superstore can get. So imagine if you had a Walmart that's the size of a mall.
Oh, yeah, I would imagine it's something quite akin to, like, okay, this is if you could visit the Amazon supply center and that turned into an open, mall. Yes, it's like 4 warehouses stuck together. Completely. Oh, actually, I did want to mention, I don't know if anybody got a chance to look at what the librarian was typing into her little screen, but they were Nexus events. And we were talking last week about how the most extreme things or simple things could cause a Nexus event. The ones that I could read was the first one, Susan Bogg, female, 32. She took the wrong bus. And that caused a Nexus event, which required the TVA. The other one was Tracy Williams, female, 25. She touched the Tesseract and opened a wormhole to Godhab Omega. I couldn't read that one word, but those are the 2 variations. One, you took the wrong bus. The other one, you touched the Tesseract and opened a wormhole. Variations in time really can come in all shapes and forms. Okay, so we get to our Rocksmart. We get the team. They're arrived. We get to meet our variant or enchanted beings that the invariant is taking over. And we get to see finally that this is, not the Loki we might have been expecting. Unless, of course, we were wondering why we kept seeing her in a hood, this variant in a hood, and not face to face. So this is obviously going to open a door to a lot of things, because a Lady Loki is very exciting. But I think because of the blonde and the different look, that's already started creating a lot of questions. Also, the fact that she doesn't like to be referred to by Loki. starts the questions. Is this Loki? Is this not Loki? So I think at this point, we're going to start getting into some of our more speculative areas right now. We got a little bit more time to do that. So what do you guys think of Loki, of our variant Loki? And let's spin that off into where do you think this is actually starting to go? Alyssa, let's kick things off with you. What do you think's going on? What are the hints that we're getting from here for what's next?
Well, I do think that she has to be a version of Loki. Maybe that she was, in her timeline, maybe Loki was born female and wasn't named Loki. That's why she doesn't want to have, or she doesn't want to be called by that name.
Okay.
I saw one of the YouTube videos, I saw there was apparently someone caught in the, I don't know, some casting list or something that the character's name is like Sylvia or Sylvie or something different. So it could just be that it's the same person born by the Ice King or whatever, raised in Asgard.
Right.
And it was the goddess of mischief, but she wasn't named Loki. She has a different name, but is basically still a version of Loki, because otherwise, why would the TVA believe that it's a Loki variant? And why are we going to spend so much time looking for a Loki variant? Oh, no, it wasn't a Loki variant after all. I think it has to be. But she may not necessarily have been named Loki, and that's why she didn't want to be called that.
Right.
That's my theory on that. But as far as what she's up to, here's my line of thinking. And actually, I need to scroll up a little bit because someone said something in the chat a little earlier. April E said, I don't think you should trust everything the TVA says. There's something hinky going on there with these supposed timekeepers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think that once we really find out what Lady Loki is doing, we're going to find out that it's more complicated than how it's been presented to us so far, where Lady Loki is the bad guy, or whatever you want to call her. She's the bad guy, and the TVA are the good guys. I think it's going to be more complicated than that. I think that there's something going on here that we are not being told, and I don't think Mobius has even been told. As Mobius says, he hasn't met the timekeepers yet, or he's never met the timekeepers. I think his boss there, I think her name is Renslayer. Who from when
Ravonna?
I've heard her referred to as Renslayer. Maybe that's her last name. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
Ravonna Renslayer.
Ravonna Renslayer. Okay. Who I understand. I'm not hugely into all the comic background, but my understanding is in the comics she's Kang the Conqueror's lover, this character, at a certain point. So I don't really trust her. I think that she knows what's really happening here, and I think that the timekeepers aren't what they're being presented as. I always get suspicious when there's these characters that nobody has met, and Mobius is like, "Oh, I've never met them before." And Mobius has this little interesting discussion with Loki about belief. This is what we believe in, and I think there's going to come a time where Mobius's beliefs are going to be challenged, because he's going to find out that everything he's ever been told is a lie. Because I don't think that everything with the timekeepers and the sacred timeline is true. And what is actually true, I don't know. But I think that is it's going to be revealed that that's a lie, and it's going to be revealed that what Lady Loki is doing, maybe she's not totally the good guy either, but you can kind of empathize with her a little bit once you find out what's really happening. And I think things are going to be a little more complex than just these are the good guys and these are the bad guys.
No bad guy is ever really bad, and no good guy is ever really good.
Yeah, we got that little line dropped in there as well. So I that's where I feel. I think that what's her name? Renslayer, whatever, I forget what you said her first name was. She is, I don't trust her. She's up to something. And also, we got some hints dropped of a mysterious other, what's the word they use? Not agent, but other.
Hunter?
No, Mobius kept, when Mobius's conversation with her.
Yes, his mysterious other.
Analyst.
Thank you.
Yes. So I think there's something going on with that too. But I definitely don't think Mobius is in on it. I don't think most of the TVA is in on it, but I think she is. And I think she may have even realized what Lady Loki is really doing, and that's why she really panicked when she saw what was happening. But we'll see. I think we might get a little bit of that. There was a scene in the trailer with Loki sitting down and talking to Lady Loki, which we may get in the next episode as Loki followed her into the portal there. So we might get a little bit more of her perspective. I'm interested to hear her perspective because I think it might not be what exactly the way things have been presented to us or presented to even some of the characters in this.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on the money with much of that, Alyssa. April E. here in the chat mentions all the statues and dolls smacks of trying a little too hard to keep the believers believing, almost cult-like. I believe talking about Ravona's office. But yeah, I think we do get a lot of insights into things. And yeah, that's one of the things I love about that dialogue is I think we are getting information for right now. These are the chaos and, order belief systems of these two individuals, plus how it's going to be subverted later on. I think you're spot on. The mention of Sylvie, it's brought up, Casey brought it up in chat, and you had mentioned it right there. If you look through the credits, because we're all obsessives and we look through all of the credits, the variant is always listed as the variant. You have Loki and you have the variant. However, on the Castilian credit slab for the voices on that, the character is listed as Sylvie.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to refer to earlier. I couldn't quite remember all of those details. But right. Yeah, that's what I saw, that there is a character listed as Sylvie, which I believe, which Bill Casey points out is the first name of the Enchantress in the comics.
Yes.
But I think this may be some sort of combination of the Enchantress and Loki, possibly.
Well, Sylvie Lufton in the comics is basically wakes as a teenager, wakes up one morning and has the powers of an Asgardian. She takes the mantle of the Enchantress, who is already an established character in Marvel, joins the Young Avengers, has adventures, does things. Eventually, down the road, is discovered to have been created by Loki because he was posing the question, what if a human thought they were from Asgard? What would that be like? Which, you just got to love the simplicity of that. Now, whether the person's powers were given to them by Loki or this person was entirely created by Loki is still kind of up in the air in the comics. But it would fill in a role if we take that kind of idea and say they're either created by Loki, a formation of Loki, thus that's why the TVA thinks that this is a Loki. But it's not really, which is why she don't want to be called a Loki. That's basically where everybody is coming off with this character. Marvel, knowing that they can do anything they want with all of these history, who knows how they'll play with that and establish that here. But that's kind of the comic-y background of that. Don, I know that you want to jump in, and there's a few things to branch off on that. What are your thoughts on Loki? Any further semblance on that? And then I know you've got some other big bads that you were alluding to earlier.
Yeah, so as far as Loki is concerned, I mean, obviously, our Loki is, he's coming into this trying to figure out how to scheme his way out of it, right? And, Mobius keeps on telling him, like, dude, I know you a lot better than you think. You're scheming to try to take over the time variance authority, and for what? Then what? You don't even know what you would do if you had that power. You've seen your entire life already, and yet you're still, like, no, I plan to rule. You don't even know what ruling is.
It means you put on plays about how great your sacrifice was. That's what we learned Loki would do with power.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, when you see someone who's been so full of themselves for such a long time kind of being brought low, but yet they're still like, no, but the brass ring is there for me to capture. It's just like, no, it's not. It never really was, and he's still like, yeah, whatever. I saw that thing. I know what you're telling me is a fact, but since I haven't lived out all that stuff, maybe I can still change it. So he's in this predicament where he wants the freedom, that he thinks he's being uh, bargained with or whatever.
Right.
But at the same point, he also is trying to find a way to escape the, what would be the inevitable, which is, you know, you're, according to the time variance authority, you're not supposed to be here. We're going to send you back to the point in which, you were about to be, handed over to Asgard. And then you get to play out the rest of your days, back where you actually belong, and probably, mind wipe you too. So you don't remember that you knew all of this stuff was supposed to happen to you. And then, him running into the female version of himself, which may not even be him, and being told, yeah, listen, you think that any of this is about you? I'm not doing any of the stuff that I'm doing because of you at all. This is totally different, because he's like, yeah, you can be my lieutenant. When I take over the time variance authority. She's like, and if you don't get the fuck out of here with that shit, yeah, it's like, no, your plan means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of anything,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that he's going to come to a realization at some point that, him playing by his own rules isn't necessarily going to work, but he's going to realize that he still needs to play by his own rules in order to get anything done, because following the TVA is going to lead him down a path of
Yeah.
no resurrections.
Getting pruned.
Yeah. So yeah, this is one of those things where I'm just kind of wondering, what is going to be the end game for our Loki versus the Time Variance Authority, and think about it like this. Now, you know what? I think the TVA, the Timekeepers, are the ultimate villains of this show.
Okay.
Because think about it, they created a whole, system to govern time and say this is the only way that things should exist. Anything that goes outside of what we dictate should exist is destroyed. Right?
Sure.
Because when they're pruning timelines, they're wiping out a total existence.
Well, yeah, at least one individual. What happens with the reset? Seems very much like a killing. In fact, I don't know if anybody ever gets brought in front of the judge and isn't eventually killed. That seems to be the only one direction that goes with that. The timeline's reset. It magically heals itself. Another version of you continues on where you're supposed to go. What happens to you?
Dunzo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, I think we're going to find out that the timekeepers have done these actions or created the whole time variance authority for some other nefarious purposes. Now, what those purposes could be, I am not exactly sure. But, obviously the people who are working at the TVA, at least I would say Mobius, What's the guy who was pushing the cart? I forgot what his name is. Casey. Yeah, Mobius, Casey, and maybe Ravana. Maybe. Not that much for Ravana. Are not in on it. I think that was Agent 50.
Yeah.
I think 50 is definitely in on it. Because she seems way too gung ho about the whole situation, so I could definitely see her being because think about it, these guys were for lack of a better term, they were going around acting like jackbooted thugs.
Okay. Well, let me parse some of that because I think this kind of leads into perfectly that the next transition is okay. So we have our timekeepers, that created the sacred timeline, and they're busy in their chamber separating the future from its chaos to create what the whole thing is, and blah 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 blah. What if they disagree on something? What if the timekeepers were three leaders from these competing multiverses that decided to, okay, we'll work together and we'll create peace so we can go forward? And maybe what if one of them wanted to do something different? I ask that because we keep seeing one in particular. From the office shot, it starts off on him and zooms out. When they're heading down into the library, the camera comes and zooms in mostly on the same central character. It's the same one that's right behind Ravana's head, and it is the one that Alyssa would be saying might be a secret lover, perhaps is the other analyst, and that's, of course, Kang. Kang, one of the timekeepers. What if he disagrees with the other two? What if he is behind this? What if he has convinced this other Loki to do these things? Or what if the other Loki is seeing that the timekeepers are nothing just warring beings that are messing things up? We keep getting this particular shot on the one timekeeper. I really think we're going to be getting now. Whether or not we actually see Kang in this series, I don't know. But I think a lot of this might end up being because of him.
Yeah, I was about to go there next, Darren. I think that exactly. I think that one of the timekeepers is Kang, possibly even the only one. Maybe there's not even multiple timekeepers. No one's seen them apparently, so who knows? But he's definitely one of them. I think he's one pulling the strings for sure. I don't know if we'll see him. We know he's been cast as Jonathan Majors from Lovecraft Country, which I'm excited about. He's going to appear. The confirmed film we know he will be in is the Ant-Man 3, basically. Ant-Man, was it Quantumania?
Quantumania, yes.
Yeah. So we know we're getting him, and that I don't know if they would have cast him when they were filming this. This was probably filmed a while ago, so I don't know.
I think it was
about
cast
that.
after,
Yeah.
But,
They could throw in a little post-credit scenes a la Thanos at the end of Avengers, where he just kind of smiles or whatever and looks evil, but I don't think so. But I think he will be set up in this show.
Yeah.
I definitely think he's pulling the string somewhere.
I think they'll want to save that reveal for a theatrical release.
Yeah.
There's certain characters, they're big. They want to put these in the theaters. They want to be that draw. Doctor Doom, you're not going to see introduced on a Disney Plus show. You're not. There's certain characters that you aren't. However, I think you're right. I think they're going to heavily set him up, and that's what they'll use for these series 4, is they can do all the exposition and backstory and character work in these shows and save all the big action set pieces and moments and events for the films. And I think that's sort of a perfect blend to keep all of us happy and fed with delicious Marvel goodness. Because I have to agree, I think this show is by far the best that we've had to offer. I mean, WandaVision was great, but I I don't know, the hook, the trick of it with the old shows started to feel a little long. And I think, some of it was great character stuff and great experimental things, but it had its limitations. I think Falcon and Winter Soldier, again, a great straightforward action story, a few moments that dragged and some stuff that I thought didn't totally make sense. But still a good bit of storyline. I think with the balance of character and weirdness and just outer realm exploration they're doing with this, I think this is I find it difficult to see how She-Hulk is really going to grab me the same way as Loki, and I'm totally looking forward to seeing that when it comes out. All right, let's see, we are hitting sort of the hour point. Wanted to bring up Rob here in the chat, mentions that he wants to see them subvert the expectations of the Timekeepers from what they are in the comics and and what they have built them up to be here, and make them less epic as they seem. Yeah, I think that's the great thing that they can do with Marvel is they can take the storylines and what we expect and go, okay, now everyone's going to think we say Sylvie, this is Enchantress. Maybe we'll mix that up. And yeah, I think the same thing with the Timekeepers. I think it gives them a great way of, seeing what works and then making adjustments in a logical way.
As long as the Timekeepers don't turn out to be some second-rate actor played by Ben Kingsley or anything.
Don't mention us, man. Don't mention us.
But I do agree with Rob there. I do think that they are going to subvert expectations. I don't think the Timekeepers are what they've told us that they are so far. Mm-hmm. I think they would ultimately be different than how they've been presented in the comics.
Yeah, no. I agree, and I'm excited. I think that's the thing that's kind of fun is for fans. It helps you build on your knowledge base and go, oh, it could be this, it could be this. Oh, I recognize this person or I recognize that look, and it's fun. And yet they're still able to give us something new, so we aren't expecting what this eventual, form's going to be. Oh, we can know all the characters and what their adventures are. But how they'll mix and match them and sort of reinvent, I think keeps allowing it to be fresh. And for the most part, all right choices. I really don't have anything that I outright have disagreed with what they've been doing with any of these shows. And I can't wait for the next episode. Every time that this is off, I'm like, why can't I stream them all at once? Because I wouldn't be talking about it as much as we are here. Yeah.
I still am in favor of binge format for these shows. I mean, I enjoy talking about them week by week as well. So there's that. But yeah. I would not have been opposed to a binge format, especially for WandaVision and this one. And Falcon and Winter Soldier, honestly, just kind of get it all out of the way.
Sure.
Okay. But then we wouldn't be here talking. So there's that.
Well, the show's obviously done a couple of things. Disney has just announced that all of its new live action series will be premiering on Wednesdays now, as opposed to Fridays, because of the way that Loki has performed. I'm not sure if that is so much the choice of day as just the quality of the show. Again, I've liked the other Marvel shows. I think this has offered something better, and this is why it's getting a better return on viewership. Not so much of what day it comes out, but hey, I don't have all the Disney metrics with me. So that's one of the big changes that's already made. Anyway,
I assumed it was because of Star Wars Bad Batch is already taken up Fridays, and they didn't want to have Star Wars and MCU on the same day. But
but they're saying the debut of the live action shows, and I think they're just doing those kind of once at a time. They'll do a Marvel, and then they'll do a Star Wars, and so on. And I think they just want to change the release date. Yeah. Again, I don't know what the numbers are, and if that really actually made a difference, or if it's just the quality of the show, and that's why people are sort of gravitating towards it. Just wanted to see if there was anything else in that. No, and no. Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming in and talking about this show. We had a great chat going on. I'm sorry I didn't get into it. I was so entranced with what everybody was talking about here, but we had an awesome group of people joining us. Allison Fortis jumped right in quite at the beginning. Of course, Rob from Smirking Gun Reviews, The Rich Room, Bill Casey, Devontae Smith, always joining us in here. Let's see, we have scroll down. April E, of course, Silva Surfer, always joining us in here as well. Jose Marie, Jose Marie. I'm terribly sorry if I'm going to be pronouncing all of these wrong. Also joining us, thank you so much for it. Epic Zombie Killer. Haven't seen you for a while, man. Good seeing you as well. Lily Mack, also just everyone, thank you so much for joining us in with this discussion. As I said, and next week we will have Dawn returning and being joined by Mark over from Enchantment of Eternity. So before we say our goodbyes, are there any last minute thoughts or ideas you guys want to drop? Let's start with you, Alyssa.
Not really. I mean, I've said what I wanted to say about what I expect. That I think we're going to get Lady Loki's perspective in the next episode, and we're going to start seeing things a little bit differently. And I think it's going to go from there. I think by the time this ends, we're going to have a very different understanding of the TVA and the Timekeepers and all of that. So that is what, and I'm really looking forward to it. And that's, I don't really have anything else to add.
All right, perfect. Don, what about yourself? Any last minute thoughts or observations, things we missed?
No, not really. I mean, listen, this was, I think, the perfect mix of suspense, mystery, and action. And especially following Loki as he's trying to navigate this world. And it's kind of odd because it's almost like we get two perspectives. Mm-hmm. We get the perspective of Loki, who is definitely a fish out of water, but we also get the perspective of Mobius, who is someone who's, while he's part of the system, he seems to be very dissimilar from those who are ingrained in the system as well. So,
okay.
Which is why him and Loki get along so well. But at the same point, it's also part of the reason why, Loki is able to get one over on him at times because, while everybody else is buying into this thing and don't trust him at all, Mobius is the guy who was like, no, I think I can trust him, which is why he was able to snatch his I forget what they called the thing last time, the time thing he kept on rewinding and then
the time loop thingy. Yes. Yeah. I can't remember what it was.
So this is interesting to get their perspectives, and if Alyssa is right, then we will get Lady Loki or Sylvie's perspective next go round, and that'll even deepen the whole thing. So I can't wait to see next week and be back here to discuss it.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us live again. Thank you for everyone joining us in the archives. We hope to see you next week, which again, Don will be returning with Mark from Enchantment of Eternity to go into episode 3. And we'll have more guests cycling through as the rest of this season progresses. So thank you all so much. Take care and bye-bye.